Now we're moving on to the way too early first look, week 1, stud tight end prices. And to top off this list, we got Mark Andrews at 6,800. Definitely got some interest in him. I mean, it's one of only two big options for Lamar Jackson to throw the ball to. Really like this price point. I thought it could have been a lot higher than this, given the production Mark Andrews had last year. Then number 2 on the list, we got Travis Kelce at 6,600. Definitely got some interest there. One of Patrick Mahomes' lone favorite targets now. I mean, we don't really know who his favorite target is after Travis Kelce now. So I'm sure he's going to lean on him a little bit more, especially early on in the year, because there's not a lot of certainty of who's going to be that top option leading towards week 1. Then we move on to George Kittle. I don't have a lot of interest in this San Francisco-Chicago game. If I was to do a one-off player, though, George Kittle could be that guy. I just don't see Kittle getting heavily involved in this type of game environment. Chicago typically does pretty good against opposing tight ends. Same thing for Kyle Pitts. I don't think I'm willing to pay that much for Kyle Pitts when I know I can get other players in that price range. This is a hard pass for me for Kyle Pitts this week. And then we move to Darren Waller at 5,400. I definitely got some interest in him. I see he's got that Q tag there. I'm not sure if that's super serious or not. But as of right now, he looks to be like he's going to be a full go for week 1. And this is one of the best game environments for week 1 as of right now. So, definitely going to have some interest in Darren Waller. The Chargers were one of the worst teams against opposing tight ends for fantasy last year. So, definitely got some Darren Waller interest. And that's the studs for week 1. Let's go ahead and move on to the mid-tier range, the 4K tight end prices. For the way too early first look, week 1 tight end prices, the 4K edition, we got TJ Hawkinson topping it off at 4,900. I remember last year he was one of my favorite tight end plays. I can't remember how much he cost at the time, but it was pretty much debating. I think he was like 4,500. He was a little more expensive than Kyle Pitts. Everyone's all crazy about playing Kyle Pitts at that 4,400, 4,500 price range he was at week 1. And I was one of the lone people out there saying, no, we got to play TJ Hawkinson. He's in the better matchup. And I was just astoundingly proven right. Probably the only time I was right about TJ Hawkinson all year long was that game. And I feel like we could have a duplication because last year Philadelphia was the worst team against tight ends for fantasy. And TJ Hawkinson, he's pretty good when he's healthy, and he looks to be 100% healthy. As of right now, he's probably one of my favorite tight ends in this 4K price range. Definitely got pretty big interest in him. Then we move on to Mike Gesicki. I don't have a lot of interest in this whole entire game whatsoever, so Mike Gesicki's really not on my list. I think he's a little overpriced in my opinion as well. Dallas Goedert playing Detroit. Detroit was pretty bad against tight ends as well. If I'm playing Jalen Hurts stacks, I'm possibly going to have some Dallas Goedert in those lineups. And then we move to Zach Ertz at 4,400. He looks to be a pretty decent priced player, especially getting some news that Marquise Brown has an injury. It's lessening that target tree more and more and more. So Zach Ertz could be a top target option if Kyler Murray doesn't have a lot of passing options. And then you move on to Pat Freiermuth, who is listed as questionable. If he's a full go week 1, I'm definitely going to have some interest in him. Cincinnati was not very good against tight ends last year, and Pat Freiermuth looks to be a pretty good option at that price point of $4,200, especially if Kenny Pickett's playing. Young quarterbacks such as Pickett will almost all the time favor their tight ends, and I believe Pickett will do that his first start. So, yeah, there's a lot of factors here, but I'm almost interested in everybody on this list other than Mike Gesicki. So, that's saying something as we lead towards week 1. I'm real excited about all these players here. Now we're moving on to, we got a lot to talk about here. There's a lot of 3K tight end prices, and to start it out, we got Robert Tonyan, who's recovering from an injury he suffered mid to early in the season last year. He looks to be back by week 1, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. A little more updates as the offseason progresses closer to week 1. David Njoku looks to be the new fantasy tight end darling. I think he's going to garner some ownership at $3,900. If I was to have some interest in this game, it would probably be him. I think Jacoby Brissett's going to make it known that he wants to get David Njoku involved. Jacoby Brissett favors his tight ends, and I think this would be a good system for him to get Njoku involved. So I do have some interest in him, but that's almost the only player I have interest in this whole entire game other than Christian McCaffrey. So, yeah, that's saying something. And then we got tight end Gerald Everett. The Raiders were not very good against tight ends either. So this is going to be a heavy tight end battle. I don't ever recommend playing a tight end in the flex, but we got to kind of consider it when both of these teams were so bad against tight ends last year. So Jared Everett is someone I'm somewhat interested in, especially if I'm considering playing Justin Herbert stacks. Probably won't have a lot of run back options with Everett if I'm playing Derek Carr stacks, but it's still early to figure all that out. So as of right now, I do have interest in Everett. Hunter Henry, 3,800 as well. If I had to pick between Everett and Henry, I would have more interest in Henry. Just seems like Mac Jones gets him involved a lot more. But I don't have a lot of interest in this New England-Miami game, so that it's going to garner that a little bit. Then we get to Austin Hooper, newly acquired by the Tennessee Titans this offseason. Don't have a lot of interest there. If I'm doing like a Daniel Jones stack, maybe I might have a little run back option, but other than that, Austin Hooper doesn't really fare well in my player pool. Cole Kmet, not this week. I'm excited about him for this season, but I don't think this week's the week that we should be trying to play him. CJ Uzomah, $3,600, appropriately priced. I think I'll have some interest in him as we progress closer to week 1. Especially if I'm trying to do a Lamar stack, you got to have some run back options, and CJ Uzomah looks to be that guy. Then we got tight end Evan Ingram at $3,500. I don't know what to think about him yet. I've been talking about this game in the last videos I've been doing, and Jacksonville, Washington is a game to attack, so I'm going to have some interest there. Looks like Washington was like middle of the pack against fantasy tight ends last year, so we got some light interest in Evan Ingram. Tyler Conklin and CJ Uzomah are both on the New York Jets, so I won't have interest in both. I'm only going to have interest in one or the other. Right now it looks like it's going to be CJ Uzomah, but who knows, it could turn into Tyler Conklin by week 1. Both of them are pretty acceptable pass catching tight ends, so. Then we move on to Irv Smith, and this guy just can't catch a break, or he catches too many breaks. Another thing is wrong with him. I believe it was like his wrist or something, so we got to keep an eye on him. Supposedly, Kevin O'Connell, the coach of the Vikings, says that Irv Smith should be ready by week 1. I don't know if I'm going to play him now, though. He doesn't have a lot of reps. Like all last year he missed out on. And then some of the year before that he missed out on reps. He's just getting a little older and not getting as many reps. I don't know what to think of this or to make of this. But right now I have light interest in Irv Smith Jr. Tight end Mo Alley Cox at $3,400. That's a pretty decent price point. I think that Matt Ryan's going to get Cox involved a lot more than what people think. So definitely someone I want to keep an eye on. And then we got Ricky Seals-Jones for the New York Giants. He made a splash last year whenever Logan Thomas was out, and he had some pretty decent games. At that price point, I'm not very interested in him, and considering the other guys I can get around that price range. So, no interest for me on Ricky Seals-Jones. But let's go ahead and get the other 3K tight ends out of the way here. Now we're getting to the punt play tight end prices, and at the top of this list we got Hayden Hurst at $3,300. Playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. If I'm playing some Joe Burrow stacks, I will have some interest in Hayden Hurst, but as of right now, he's only a large field tournament play for me. Then we move on to Anthony Fersker, who's part of the Atlanta Falcons. Don't really have a lot of interest there because Kyle Pitts is there. Then we move on to Foster Moreau. If for some reason Darren Waller's out, perfect tight end replacement. He did a couple games last year and played pretty well. Not much interest there. Logan Thomas, recovering from that injury. Who knows if he'll be back in time. But if he is, at that price point, you got to consider it. That would be a great punt play. Adam Trotman at $3,100. No interest really. Then we get to Brevin Jordan. I think Brevin Jordan will be the best punt play for this slate, just due to the fact that the Colts were pretty bad against tight ends last year. They were like the fourth worst team against fantasy tight ends. Brevin Jordan at $3,100. He had some flashes of greatness last year, some great potential. I hope we see him smash against the Colts. I don't think I'm going to change my mind about this one very much. I like Brevin Jordan, and I liked Brevin Jordan a lot in previous weeks last year. So, definitely got some interest in him. Then we move on to John Bates at $3,100. He's the Commanders' tight end, along with Logan Thomas. If Logan Thomas is out and John Bates is the starter, I will have some interest in him. Just due to the price point, $3,100 is pretty cheap. And then we move on to Tommy Tremblay at $3,100. I don't have a lot of interest in this game. Cleveland was like middle of the pack against opposing tight ends for fantasy last year. So that knocks out Ian Thomas, who's a little bit lower down that list as well. Jeff Swain, Tennessee Titans tight end. Austin Hooper is now the starter there. So don't really have a lot of interest in Jeff Swain either. Drew Sample, don't have interest in him because they just went out and got Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst is the starting tight end. So Cincinnati is not the place for Drew Sample. And then DeGuara is the backup tight end to Robert Tonyan. If for some reason Robert Tonyan can't make it, you got to look at the DeGuara here at $2,900. It would be a pretty decent punt play tight end that I wouldn't mind playing. But yeah, those are the punt play tight ends that have some opportunity, but there's not very many on here that I'm willing to play. But that pretty much covers it. So let's move on to the top three tight ends that I'm interested in each category. To top off this list, my way too early favorite stud tight end is no surprise. It's Mark Andrews at $6,800 in a pretty good matchup, and he's Lamar Jackson's top target. I don't see Mark Andrews going anywhere. But up in fantasy value, definitely someone I want. I think he's a little too cheap at that price point, and I think he's going to go off week one. Definitely got some huge interest in Mark Andrews for the top stud tight end. Next on the list, our way too early favorite mid-range tight end is going to be TJ Hawkinson at $4,900. I was big on him last year in week one, and I think I'm going to be big on him again in week one this year. He just looks to have the best matchup out there. If we're looking at last year's stats, Philadelphia was the worst team against tight ends. So that's something we're going to want to expose with TJ Hawkinson, and I don't see why we wouldn't be wanting to play him on this week one slate at that price point. Great price point for him. And our way too early favorite punt play tight end is Brevin Jordan at $3,100. I really like this matchup. The Colts were like the fourth worst tight end team in 2021. I think this is going to be a great punt play opportunity, and I hope it works out. We still got a long ways to go, but Brevin Jordan looks to be the best punt play tight end on this slate. Well, there you have it for our first look fantasy football tight end segment. I am your host, Jacob Brown. I hope you enjoyed this content, and if you did, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you want to see more content just like this. We got coverage of the wide receivers, of the running backs, of the quarterbacks, and the other videos here. There's also a video going over GPP strategy and cash game strategy if you need a little refresher on that. And we will be having content updated on my Patreon here in the next few weeks to get ready for week 1. But yeah, other than that, have a great day, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Losers Win Again Fantasy Football channel.